In these lectures, I introduce you to two new inference rules. For ease of recording, I have broken this lecture up into three parts. So the first rule I want to introduce you to is the rule Modus Tollens, or as it is more commonly known, simply Modus Tollens. Consider the following argument. If it is raining, the streets are getting wet. It is not the case that the streets are getting wet. Therefore, it is not the case that it is raining. This argument is an instance of the following pattern. If P then Q, not Q, therefore not P. Or if we write it out as a sequent, it looks like what you have down here at the bottom of this slide. I claim that this argument pattern is self-evidently valid. Now we'll need a new rule, however, in order to prove that this sequent is valid. And our new rule is going to be the rule Modus Tollens. And the rule may be stated as follows. If one has a conditional on one line and the negation of the consequent of that conditional on another, one may write down a new line containing the negation of the antecedent of that conditional. Let's go ahead and apply the rule to prove the validity of the sequent we've just been looking at. So as we always do, we start out by writing down our premises. Okay, now that we've written down our premises, we may prove that this sequent is valid by applying our rule, Modus Tollens. So we have a conditional on line 1, if P then Q. We have the negation of the consequent of that conditional on line 2, namely not Q. The rule Modus Tollens therefore permits us to go ahead and write down the negation of the antecedent of the conditional that we have on line 1. So we're able to infer not P from lines 1 and 2 via the rule Modus Tollens, or again more commonly Modus Tollens. Here's a more complicated example. Take the following sequent. If not P, then R. If P, then Q. Not Q, therefore R. This argument pattern is also valid, and the rules that we've developed so far allow us to prove that it is valid. So as usual, we begin by writing down our premises. Now we need to think about what it is that we're able to do with what we have. And at this point, our options are fairly limited. There's not much we can do, but one thing we can do is we can note that there's a conditional on line 2, if P then Q, and there's the negation of the consequent of that conditional on line 3. So that tells us we're in a position to apply Modus Tollens. So let's go ahead and do that. We apply Modus Tollens to lines 2 and 3, and that gives us the negation of the antecedent of the conditional on line 2, namely not P. Okay, our goal is to get R, and now we're in pretty good shape because on line 1 we have the conditional if not P then R, and on line 4 we have not P. So we have the antecedent of the conditional on line 1 on line 4. So that puts us in a position to apply the rule Modus Ponens. So via the rule Modus Ponens applied to lines 1 and 4, we're able to get R, which is what we want, so we're done with our proof. Okay, that was an introduction to the rule Modus Tollens. I will see you in the next part of the video.